I began my whole interest in politics from school, and I'm going to use all that experience to assess the title that was given to you in relation to the Mass Democratic Party and the first class vote system. Of course, you will see the implications then for the Democratic Party, but I'm talking at the generic level within the categories of the science that I'm trained in. But I would have developed my interest at the school, and I was in days of black power and those kinds of things, so that you could understand why there would be an influence to the left. They had something called the Acton Club at Arson College, which we used to invite other schools to come over and listen to us discuss things. There was a chance for the boys to show off, especially like Queen's College girls and St. Michael's girls and Foundation. So I used to be showing off, talking enough, writing of politics and the girls in the press, you know. And that was your opening to get to whatever you wanted to get to. So at that time, Arabara would be Prime Minister. And he was a formidable person. When I went to secondary school, my father was paying school fees for our family was a family of 7. All of us were born in Tudor Street, but then we went to Cheapside, born in Cheapside of Waterville, at a place called the Palms. We had 4 big tall palm trees around the house. I have 4 sisters went to Queen's College, so you pay fees for Queen's College. And then I went to Arson College, paid fees for Arson College. And my 2 younger brothers, the youngest one being Justice Francis Belle, they went nowhere. So you pay all that school fees, and Bar comes in and says they got paid secondary fees no more. So you can understand what a hero he would be. Then my father, and although my father, as a young man, used to carry mail to 3rd o'clock. He told me that he would go there and he would see Bradley Adams lying down on the ground in a pile of newspapers. And he would always tell him, "So young man, where to send you?" And he would then explain why he had come to deliver whatever. And they would talk politics. And he said on one occasion to him, my father said that he asked him, "So if your son comes back here and he says that he's not a socialist, what would you do?" And Adam said, if he said that he's not a socialist, I would disown him. They just told me that. He named me George Adams Vincent Belle. And Belle has an E. So he said that my initials are G-A-V, Jav, give, that God gave him his first son after the 4 girls. So that's what my initials are supposed to translate as. They used to call me Gav at home. And when I went to Arson College, the boys, they called me Jav. So if I heard the boys say Jav, I know that they were excluding me. When I went to university in Almona, they called me G-Bell because they used to call everybody there G-Beck, G this and G that and T-Man and all that. So they called me G-Bell. But I came up being known as Jav. But I didn't come out here and tell you all that I want a nickname called Jav. Don't call me George. But I really was always called Jav Bell. Barrow was a very dominant figure. And I heard I know you all for your political purposes, and this is where you have to give me some room, you know. Their political purposes, they want how Mia is so formidable and tyrannical and all that. Mia is nowhere near Tom or Barrow in terms of dominant personality, political personality. And constitutionally, she has less power than either one of them. Constitutionally, she has less power. She's a weaker prime minister than either of them, but in political personality, she's also a leader. And I come back to this later on, but it's just because of on the point note. I remember Barra. First of all, he dominated in Parliament. And the Democratic Party was at the height of its power then. They had won in 61 and was just dominated into independence. The party was on the defensive. In the debates, Barra would be dominating. He was the only body that could challenge Barra inside the House of Assembly was Reece St. John, not Tom. When Tom came back, Tom looked like a nerd. Okay? He was the parties here. And he was tall and slim on body. And of course, he used to walk with a thing, no? I remember that in 73, when I was doing my master's, I went to interview him. I told him to sit down in the lawyer's office. He was in opposition. And what happened is that I was after the 71 election. So, Barra thought he was going to get beat in 71. But he won by a bigger majority than he thought. The LP did better than he thought they would do. He thought black power and so on would disturb the party. And Reece St. John lost his seat. But Reece St. John is the boy that used to carry the fight to Barra. And Barra used to, in a sense, respect him. Some people say in his social snobbery as well. He's alleged to have said in the House of Assembly, the only body here with pedigree is me and Bree. And the pedigree of Bree is not St. John, the pedigree of Bree is Austin Miller Austin. It's certainly Miller Austin from. Okay. But Bree lost his seat. And Peanuts Morrison, so he got beat by about somebody and nobody really. You understand? So it was devastating, and the whole of Reece St. John personality changed after that. He was never the same. And Tom went through, they said, helped by Lady Adams. Lady Adams had a absurd chance to get her son through. So they got ripped to push Bree to say, well, by the time that they won in 76, then Bree would be back. As a cadet, I went right to the top of the cadets as a cadet officer. And in the 1969 international camp, cadet camp, had Canadians there, Jamaicans, Trinidadians, and from the small islands, and then they had this parade, and Barra came to inspect the parade. And I was a senior cadet on our study time, so they put me in command of the parade. So I had to report to him. And I remember as a teenager, there in my uniform, I think I stand up, I look at Barra looking back at me. And I never saw anybody with eyes that fierce. Now, it's a look that I have seen in other fellows that went to war and apparently were in the Air Force. There's a flash of the eyes that is like if they saw death. It's a tremendous stare, okay? But I always stare back at people too. So I think I'm proud and I stare back too. Then I report and then I carry them around. But he had a way of throwing back his shoulders, pushing his chest up, and looking full height, okay? I heard somebody say they wanted to talk Barra because of the picture of independence. I thought Barra was short. Barra looked short in that picture because John's supposed to be tall. Yeah, but Barra was near 6 foot tall or 6 foot tall. Okay, right. He was tall fellow. I'm big. And we were frightened of him. There was no question whether Barra in charge of Barbados. Barra dominated Barbados. Charge of Barbados. And he's a fierce looking fellow. I saw him the second time I saw him, then I had a direct contact with him. Was in the supermarket. Down Spikestone. Not Spikestone, down Hold on. I was pushing my car, he was pushing his car too. At that time, I had come back to Barbados for 1 year, and I was writing a column called Calling Clear in the Air. So he knew me, he knew who I was. And I saw him, he threw up his shoulders and he pushed up his chest. And he looked at me, and he stared at me for 3 minutes. And I stared back at him. And I know he knew who I was. But he didn't say a word to each other. And then the third time was up here, right there in that gymnasium when the DLP was in opposition. And I had invited Ed Best come back from Barbados, some Jamaica, and I was a young academic. And my presentation was based on a paper that I had written. And I was told by more senior academics that you're supposed to write on the paper, not to be quoted without the permission of the author. The legal thing, how do you know that? But it was because they sit there and had American fellows who come up to these conferences and look for papers, and they would teach a paper and publish it in Australia when you pay to see it. Harder than him. And therefore, sure, I was writing these things up. I did not write it down because I was saying, you can't quote me. But Peter Morgan came to me right the day that I was in. Told me, Mr. Barr is not pleased about you, this thing about not quoting from your paper, you know. And I said, I tried to explain to him that it wasn't because I was saying that he can't quote me, it's just that I was told as a young academic to do that. But I think apparently he took it the wrong way. He took it that I was being, you know, kind of holding on and so on. And Peter Morgan never carried me to talk to him because I was hoping to go and talk to him then. But that didn't happen. He went up on the platform and he was going through the papers. I remember when he came to my paper, he was struggling in to George Belle because he knew that it had caused him some concern. He paid for this boy secondary education, paid for this boy university education, so he come and tell me I can't go in. He is. You know? So I think he was upset with that and justified me, so I did not mean it that way. But I didn't get a chance to explain that to him. Never got a chance to explain it to him, so I regret that. So what I'm going to read to you now is not something that is going to be definitely obvious, but it's something that informs me. Like somebody asked when I expect these questions like this, are you still a Marxist? Well, you know, a lot happened in the world last 40 years. I think, well, enough to say now, we're talking 40 years, so we all didn't even know. As I said, it was formed at the time when left-wing views and things were developing, you know, black hole and so on. And I was reading Mao Zedong in 6 hours in English. There's got that on also, but I was reading Mao Zedong. I went to Mona as a Maoist because Mao had said that the Chinese people had stood up, that they had been oppressed, and they went through a revolution and they stood up. The weapon in the hand was the weapon of Marxism. That's what Lenin said in Russia. Lenin said in Russia, we are now going to construct the socialist revolution. That was most of the Chinese people have stood up. And that struck me because I would say black people like Marcus Garvey, black people like Dumb, and they're looking for something to bring them up. And that's what attracted me to Mao Zedong at the time. But if you go into that thing, you're going to think differently. Like I just explained up here before I started talking, that I do not see the world in a linear way. Like I don't know, my father, as I said, called me George Adams Vincent Belle as a baby. So how the hell I'm George Adams Vincent Belle at 7? Jordan went to Belle Mark 6. But as because they don't think in a linear way. When I was lecturing on careful, I used to tell my political theory students that when I come inside of this lecture, when I leave, I'm not the same person, and you ain't the same person either. You all will change. You have chemical reaction. And you talk and you breathing all my chemicals. My skin falling off. I go and drink some water there now, so my external things to change up too. How the hell I can be the same body? And I'm telling you, you ain't gonna believe it. Because if you think in linear, you ain't necessarily believe all that. But when you look at Charles and all and everything, that's how I see you. And that's how I see all of us, the interconnectedness of all things. All of us interconnected. All of us are transforming. Quantification in a quantifiable way, and then you transform actually at a critical point qualitatively. That's why water turns to ice, water turns to steam. You live in 1 minute and you're supposed to be dead, guys. I said it earlier, supposed to be dead, guys, already dead. You think you're dead. I say without any doubt at all that I will live forever. Y'all say, well, get straight to hell. Because if I was in Gaza, I would think I had already. I can't say we can send me the worst at Gaza. So hell, you know, we have it. Trump. Trump bad, man. But all of the most of the world is in hell. And then to tell you that, like, big Jews and saying some other place out there, suffer that again. No way. I'm going to live forever. He told, and that is what he told me. He just said that as one. I said at St. Mary's Church. Belle of St. Mary's as well. That's just a church. Just walk up the road, through the street. There's St. Mary's Church. Mass, Sunday school, even song, every Sunday. So I get Broadway Church and I get called one as a Marxist. Big Broadway Church, man. I could recite a whole even song. Bad how this pretty alright. But you know something else too? I left the church at 40. And my father didn't say a word. He just looked at me. And I tell you that when I stay home, because I can play cricket at home. So he thought that I was just being lazy or learning for sport. And you know, it's a philosophical position. Well, I got a philosophical position at 40. And you know, y'all gonna condemn me at the end of it. Like say, you know, we ain't got no God in you. We must God. I know what is right and I know what is wrong. And I don't need nobody, no pope to tell me what is right and what is wrong. I know what's evil. I know what's good. And I don't need nobody to tell me what I is. But I know this, I when I read what Jesus said, I know they can say a lot of good things. But he say what the Christians think say. The Christians are not they're not following Christ. But again, I can get sent out for that. This guy, GGM James, there's a description on the back of this book, and you can see all of it, like I can't record and all that, so you must see all that. But I have a bookshelf at home with a whole lot of precious stuff in it. I live in my study with all my books around me. If I want to, I do something. When I have backup, I do. And if they move me from inside that study, I know I did. That's right there. Once I can keep that books there around me, my brain can keep going. I can athlete run around, you know, training. But it can happen to you anytime, because I see not in control over that. So this might be like last mass, you know. You come in, so after the day you can't let you work. I hope I know. I ain't saying nothing funny. That will mess me up. Right. Manual, this is what is quoted from the Journal of Unconscious to people is ready, then the master will appear. Avatars appear when the disciples are ready. In the Black Gnostic world of learning, George G.G.M. James is indeed an avatar. As the importance of his work is understood, then ranks of his disciples grow. It was Dr. James, more than any other scholar, who provided us with overwhelming proof that Aristotle, far from being the world's greatest ancient scholar, was the top robber plagiarist of all time. Aristotle stole from 9 libraries the cultural legacy of the Egyptian mystery system, not understanding their dialectical essence. He gave them in his edited translations and rewrites and eclectic twists. He also discarded them with dogma and passed them on to the Western world with frozen, static formulations rather than their original fluid and dynamic expressions. It was Dr. James who put into historical perspective the significance of the Memphite equation to all modern science. It made possible the mode of thought which is characteristic of Planck, Einstein, Heisenberg, and the entire galaxy of high-energy physicists who have used quantum equations to overthrow classical mechanics, physics, and chemistry, and to make possible intergalactic communication via the neutrino. It was Dr. James who marshaled evidence of the discovery by Africans of the most basic law of the universe, the unity and struggle of opposites, called by him the doctrine of opposites. It was Dr. James who revealed in great detail the dialectical approach to philosophy and life of the ancient Egyptians. Black Gnosticism shows an unbroken historical development from the Memphite equation to Einstein's famous equation E equal mc2. When I was in England, at University of Manchester, doing my PhD, my youngest brother Francis wrote a letter to me. And this is to start to distinguish the categories of caucus, mass democratic, vanguard. Francis wrote to me, Conway boy, surrounded by Conwayers, and asked me, as his big brother, what party would you join if you were in Barbados? Democratic Labour Party, or the Barbados Labour Party, or the group of people that are around me now calling themselves Monali. I told him, I can join the BLP, you can join the BLP, I would join Monali, because I am a revolutionary. And Francis went and joined Monali, and Francis became the leader of Monali. They were reading my master's thesis that I had written before I went to Manchester. And it is in that thesis that I resurrected the whole thing, book 37 and so on. Because when I was doing the research for that, with that thesis, I had come back here on the federal maple. I used to come down on the federal maple and come back from Jamaica. You would take 3 days across from Jamaica to St. Kitts. Then you go to Antigua and Montserrat. Then you go to Dominica. Then St. Lucia and then Barbados. So you had 3 days at sea. And while you were at sea, a lot of the students that were on the federal maple would be vomiting and things. They're eating dumplings and soup and all kind of things. I used to buy one of them big husky Jamaican breads, hard bread, and a bag of oranges. And I just eating bread and oranges for the 3 days coming across. Man, vomit yet. what happened is that in the first 2 hours, you start to feel kind of unsteady. Never gonna lie down. All right, get up, I cool. I walk all over Barbados doing interviews with her, trying to find people from 1937. And the people from 1937 were afraid and ashamed to talk about 1937. Gotta pull it out of them. Roland Edwards is the one body that decided that he can talk to me about 1937. Roland Edwards, who wrote the national music, the national anthem. He was living in a house, an upstairs house in Spikestone. But he couldn't go upstairs because he was blind, almost blind. So he went there, he got my George Belle, so he come in, we went to talk about 1937 and all the parties performed and so on and so forth. And he said, okay, George, keep talking. And he looked at me and said, well, you like a communist. I said nothing. But he started talking fully after that. He talked, man, he let go of all the other information on me. But I'm glad about this communist. So that is how I grew up then about 37. But I said that the people that I saw in Barbados at that time were ashamed to talk about 1937. The Barbados, their party was also afraid to talk about it because they felt I didn't talk about 1937, they start talking about champagne, and then the others could be diminished. And Barry wanted to talk about 1937 because he felt like he talked about 1937, the others would get energy over that. So he didn't talk about it. So neither of the two mass parties wanted to talk about 1937. So he had silence. And Barbados was silent. And the people of Barbados were silent. The people of Barbados were ashamed of this thing. I listen to all these fellas now talking about them resurrect 1937. I don't like, well, I don't want to use that strong language. But I know where 1937 came from in relation to people like Ricky Parks, and my little brother Francis, and those Cooper Conner boys who revived 1937. Myself and Ricky Parks are the first people that went and put a wreath on the Bussa statue on the 1st of May, 1985, when we launched the Workers' Party of Barbados. And the permanent secretary had said we should not do it because it was illegal to do it, as we said. We put the wreath anyhow. We were the first people to put the wreath. And a whole lot of the people that you see walking up there now, there wasn't no way around there. And it's called a boy. But all are the source and the energy of everything now. But I know the whole story. I know all of them. I know where they come from and everything. Okay? And who do it? I know Denny too. Denny was wanted to be my one, not wanted to be one. Denny was my bodyguard. So I used to be driving at night, and Denny sitting down next to me, and special branch behind us. Talk about 30, you know 30. Special branch behind me, man. I up there like Rihanna drive. That's some little place that you can drive up in there and the thing block off. And I do so on it, so boom, drive in there, and stop. And special branch up behind me, kettle, I said, you know, 11 and go, how are you know? Now that's a nasty comment, okay? But he said it there, you know. But we stay on with the special branch because of our meetings, in contrast to the mass Democratic Party and the F.P.P Party, which I was going to soon. They had more special branch than people at our meetings. We knew all the special branch police. Y'all know what special branches do? Yes. Oh, yeah, I know what special branches because I mean, I even don't know what special branches, but in them days, we had special branches in the past. When we were holding our meetings up in space above Queen's College, we used to look at you see police cars, I tell you all these fancy computers and things, the police cars have microphones and look. And we would have a radio on, we would turn on a radio because we were told by the Cubans that if you turn on the radio, it would mash up how they can hear properly. So we were informed by Cuban intelligence. Okay? I used to my boss's road a tall fella. Dark. Colonel in DGA. He would sit down in boxes road and talk like a Belgian, but no Belgian there could tell that he was a Belgian. His grandparents were Belgians in Cuba. The only thing I would make Barbados suspicious for him is that he was so damn tall that I was he got scanned and said, Philip. And we don't know the clan beyond the United States, actually. You want them tall people to howl about them. You get some of the genes, right? But some of the genes, but you get all of it. But all tall people used to breed up and say, Philip. They used to breed them in Antigua. That's why all the birds tall. They said, you want a big tall man, that bright, that's the best thing. A short, stupid man is the worst slave. A short, bright man is a medium slave. So the best slave is a tall, bright man. So you get nothing there, okay? And you're also saying, he ain't gonna mess up, but he can mess up because you can think of sabotage him. Anyhow, I end up in Manali, as I said. I chose the left-wing party. Might have been a mistake. I probably should have joined, I don't know. At that time, I probably had joined the LP, but because Tom was there. Tom had banned Ralph Gonzalez. Because Ralph Gonzalez was supposed to be a communist, teaching at Cahill. I was in Jamaica, having come back from England. In 1977, I got my PhD before I got here when I was born. And I taught at Mona for 3 years. And then I heard that Tom Adams had frustrated the contract of Ralph Gonzalez. You see how he smiled? When you hear me say frustrated the contract, that's illegal, that's illegal language. It's frustrate the contract. You can tell me Barbados said it can work. Contract frustrated. So the university will tell me they're frustrated the contract of Ralph Gonzalez. Will I come down to Barbados and teach the students for the time before they could fill the post? I told them no, I was not going to contribute to the frustration of the contract. If you all want me to come to Barbados, advertise the post and I can apply for it. So in the interim, there are 2 lawyers in Barbados that have PhDs in political science. Maybe more, but definitely these 2 are the ones, relevant ones. So Richard Chatterton, he was a minister at the time. He Tom Adams, and Trevor Carmichael. So Trevor Carmichael was asked to teach for the year while the advertising post. The advertising post, I applied for it, and I came down here. So I was down here then in 1980, by 1980. So I could have joined the Democratic Party if the question was put to me. Which of the parties would I join? I saw Tom was a white ban Ralph. He said he banned because he's a communist. I got it banned because Joe don't have the same birthright. I see all these stories right there. Yeah, but Tom used to ramble the girl from Dunbright and Belle rocks at her, and then all walk in, you went down and put a hose through the bedroom window. And right, pick the girl out. I used to think that would be a motley worse, I I see Barra stop outside the Hastings. They said Barra stopped the car when he had breakup with his wife. And the wife was inside that car. He said, get out, man. Get out. This Barra here now. Get out. You wouldn't drive out the car with the violence. But as much as you were separated, there was still a party to us. There's another slant on the earth from the leader, right? To say that bar would be like in up here, party on Road Street, and say that you can love F.P.P. And if Carlin was there, Carlin is the name of his right? He said, I ain't going with F.P.P. no Carlin, I don't know. All of them sweaty men come and rub up on a nice brown singer. She was a American, yeah, she's got the Mary's church. So somebody said that bar was small one night, huh? I went to, on Friday nights, used to, myself, Patty Manuel, Keith Hunt, and people like that were older than I was. I used to line with them. Probably that's why they got me at university. And they would drive around by all these girls and they drop in by this boy, drop in by the next body as well. And they would drop me Kampala or something. Down Paradise, you know. I remember going there one night, the bar had the drinks laying around the veranda thing. He tried to brandy this side and he ran on that side. He said, well, see your people by the electric there, you go down there. You try to run down there. These drinks up there, this brandy up there, right? And he tells us, oh, he's a snob, you know, because of that. So that's the bar that I know. I remember a bar on Mid-Fusion. Time, well, I know that we're square box in somebody else. It was on turn, right? And there was a big argument with some fellas from KFL about Black Ball. And bar said, you know, I was shut out the station, we would take that one dog and I shut out KFL. They call out Black Ball, and they didn't have Black Ball. Yeah, they Black Ball. I remember that bar that passed in 1970, Black Ball happened. Right, when you hear Stoley Carmichael was coming through here and all that, so they felt that what happened in Trinidad was going to come straight to Barbados. Because that's happened in the 1930s. They came right down the island. So bar passed in. Or not only that, but the fellas that used to, they had a left-wing party then, all the F.P.P. With Bobby Clark and later. We using that, they was good at Cardinali. Yeah, we're going to right, the guys blessing man. When them fellas get on the platform, you would feel that it's like a riot. You know, talk about the demonstration, I don't know, they're in the dynamic man. If you hear Calvin and him talking, the best pitch of his voice would make you feel like you want to better rock. And they used to say, "Mom, we get up there now, kill bar. We get up by Colonial Farm now, kill bar." They used to say things like that. And the police there watching them, you know. But then they get the bar get fun at them. He said that one. You went in boys are all the, when they're talking, all the spit coming out of them. He said, you used to make fun at them. Okay? So I that was another laughing part I could have joined, another part. I don't was too comfortable with them, but the fellas, I know you know them like a lodge. You would have thought at lodge. And they had Black Star. Black Star paper, and they had, I got my little red book. Again, I don't know how many of y'all know it was a little red book. Little red book from China. Yeah. Any Black Star I bought, they still got it in my bookshelf at home. The only thing difference with it now is I got a whole lot of red marks in it because my daughter, she got on it and skipped out on it, okay? And got a whole lot of peg marks and things inside the place there. Got that preserved from the 1960s. A mass democratic party is designed within the liberal democratic system to be the party machine to win the election. Because that is where you get the government. It has to be an omnibus party, all carrying. It is a contradiction of that party's structure and its design and its science to be sectarian. And I came here to talk the truth to you all, okay? That there are characteristics that start to develop culturally in the Democratic Labour Party. I can say right now then, but I can go ahead. That became sectarian. And the moment you become sectarian, you enter self-defeat. The party that is most sectarian is the party that I joined, Vanguard Party, the party of revolutionaries, the party that Lenin said, Vladimir Lenin, who is the leader of the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, when he was quarreling with other Marxists that were in mass democratic parties, they call them the Mensheviks. There's a mistake because Menshevik means minority and Bolshevik means majority, but it's the other way around in terms of who was the bigger party. And Lenin said, better, fewer, but better. Better, fewer, but better. But a mass democratic party cannot call that as its organizing principle. Better, fewer, but better. The reason why the Vanguard Party, the party of the professional revolutionaries, the party of the communists, goes for better, fewer, but better, is because each one of them, they live revolution politics every day. When I went to visit Chetty Jagan in Guyana, Chetty Jagan is a communist. Every day, he in opposition for 30 years, because burning down there, rigging left, right, and center, cows voting and all kind of things. I said these Indians must not win, and they got more Indians down there than they got Africans. So therefore, I rigging. Chetty Jagan used to go to work every morning at 8:30. If he got a job, he would drive down to Freedom House and sit down and start work, ordering car parts and doing videos and all kind of totally committed to the party. You can go outside the road and start writing on the easel, chalk, talking to the people walking up and down the road. His whole life, every day, he in politics, every minute. And he got around him a set of fellas like that. A fella called Clement Rohi. Yes, who was close to him as well. Every time Jacob came here, he would call me. And I would pick him up at the airport. And if you get this one, he would tell me, okay, George, you're going to get this car park, that car park, and you would go to the car park. And one of the things that you see with these leaders, I've met a lot of them, endless energy. They sit down in the chairs like so, at the airport, and there's a 5 minutes, and then just get back up. And he's fresh. He's gone again. Okay. And when you saw Mara, same thing, energy. So I was telling you about Tom earlier. When I interviewed Tom, in 73. Tom said, not the phone. And when the phone rang, Tom take a microphone and also put it on the phone. In my presence, and tape everything that John was saying. And John is wise people.
Oh yes. John lived from that.
Yes. But he was taping everything that John said. And then I gone to Jamaica at that time, and my sister married my favorite sister. She used to work for Barra. She's glad. Saw when Barra was refusing to look at certain letters that the Americans were sending because the Cubans were sending the fellas through Barbados to go to Angola. And Barra refused to look at the letter. And they said, come back up. Said, no, you plane dead. Dead man said, no, you plane pass back through Barbados. They let it right down, they get refuel, the fuel, and go down. Barra allowed that to happen, okay? Because he was committed to overthrowing apartheid. I see Tom looking at my head. And Ed been in Jamaica at that time, and the fellas used to comb the hair, and they would come back here, so. Tom used to party here, he take look like a nerd. After Tom see my head, Tom stopped partying here. Tom started coming here back. Right, yeah, right. And then it's food or drink time and water. I was like, what's all right? Next time I hear Tom got enough of women and thing. In the nerd anymore. Checking beer women. And that's when he become political leader of the Barbados. Okay? The Mass Democratic Party, Omnibus Party. It does not sectarian. Vanguard Party, better, fewer, but better. Each of the communists is supposed to go and organize around them. Mass organization. That is how they influence everything. So Belle said, I know the moment that the workers and the peak peasants want to engage in insurrection, it's going to come back to me. So that's the dialect there, that's the contradiction, that's the paradox that you see there. A small party linking into mass organization in order to get all the information it can get, in order to do at a moment. But Lenin said, be an anti-insurrection tonight. You gotta argue that point. He wanted tonight, not tomorrow, tonight, on the basis of the information that came back in. But if you're in a liberal democratic system, he was under Tsarist regime of tyranny. They would kill you for what you're defending and fighting for. In a communist party, you can cut off a section of the communist party, the other section don't know what's going on. That's how they're organized. The general secretary might be flapped up, who is the leader in those parties. You know everything that's going on. That's why Stalin became general secretary of the Bolshevik party, so you can know everything that's going on. And Lenin warned the Bolsheviks about Stalin. He said, Stalin is capricious. And Stalin destroyed 2/3 of the Bolshevik party in order to consolidate his power. That's what you could do also in a sectarian party like that. You could organize it in a way that you could control it. Against what the organization should be doing, like what I said before, that these professional revolutionaries will reach out and therefore mobilize trade unions, the equivalent of NGOs, and call them that then, and so on, and mobilize people. But the Mass Democratic Party has to carry alliances. So when you see factions and people with different perspectives inside of a Mass Democratic Party, that is not to worry you. That is for you to have the political skill to bring it together. And that's what somebody like a Barra had. He could talk with all the factions, and that's why he led the Democratic Party so effectively. You don't quarrel with all these sections. You've got to be able to master them.
Yes.
But that is another characteristic I saw happening in the DLP that undermined what it was. They started quarreling in its alliances. Instead of bringing them together as an omnibus, you start dividing and you get it on like an inquisition. Do you belong? Are you a pure and holy? And if you're impure or holy, I will excommunicate you. Excommunicated. All you know when you do that is that you're going to lose the election 30 well. I see what I had a bad thing. I said, no, everybody had to get next. No. But that's why he set himself up for.
But don't speak it into the atmosphere.
Right. Okay. That's dialectical, okay? It's going to the atmosphere. And they say that the thought rides on top of the words. Okay? And it goes on and on and on. And this is where you start to say, all the opium man out. These things, you know, people know some of this by common sense. So this is why we are all connected, you see, interconnectedness. Yes. So you have that Mass Democratic Party, then that Omnibus Party. The other party that dominated the Caribbean is what I call Caucus Party. And that was partly to do with the inefficiency of some of the smaller islands. that they were trying to model themselves on the Mass Democratic Party too. But they ended up really being under the leadership of dominant people, the Birds in Antigua and so on. Okay. Compton in St. Lucia and so on. But the real model was that the first Mass Democratic Party model on the British Labour Party. And the British Labour Party, remember that becomes the model of organization within a liberal democratic system. We live in a liberal democratic system. I use in categories of my science, political science. So we use that kind of language. A liberal democratic system is the system that we live in. Okay? Liberal democratic. In other words, you're not only democratic, you're liberal. Which is sometimes that messes you up too. Because liberal is dealing with liberty, is dealing with the freedom of the individual. And you see, some of them don't understand that there's something called socialist democracy too. And it's guided by a principle called democratic centralism, in which the majority dominates to the extent that it inhibits the individual. But they think that works for them. The liberal is supposed to preserve the individual at the same time be the majority. Sometimes the individual become more powerful than the majority. That's why I got a problem in the United States right now with these billionaires, you know. They're planning to do it. They're trying to do a caucus thing there now, authoritarian caucus thing there now, and destroy the democratic institutions. You just got to read 2025 and the, what that's what I call it? Anyway, yeah, there's some document about there are all the project, right? They got the whole big data that these billionaires will take over and run America. Oligarchs, right? Yes. But they will say that they are fighting for liberty, that the individual, okay, the individual Trump. Now, the contradiction I went on there in that situation, it's going slightly off from my describing the categories of the parties. But they said that some of the canvassers for the Democratic Party went down south and met some old people, old rednecks, they would call them racists. And the woman said to the old man, "Who are we voting for?" Some people were asking us who we voting for. And the old man said, "Tell them we voting for the nigger." Meant that they're going to vote for Obama. We voted for the nigger. Oh, you're racist, huh? We voted for the nigger. The nigger's supposed to be magical. Because they want a nigger, a magic man, to mash up the system because it has frustrated them. The liberal democratic system has blown itself in relation to the American dream. So a whole set of white working class people, this will get into trouble in America now, decide that they're going to want a magical black man to mash up them Obama and then y'all like a white man. So you're in a black man, you're in magical. So you guys are worried no more about it. They go for Trump, so they're going for a billionaire now who will mash up the system. Because they are against that system, because their system tells them that they have a dream, American dream, and they know they're not the American dream. Their children are going to be poorer than them. And that's happening all over the world within the liberal democratic system. It happened in Britain, France, it happened right here too. Okay? Where are we going? You're going nowhere, you're spitting in mud. When you get as old as I am, all young people, boy, we're going to change the government, and when we change the government, man, you do things coming in. One don't, I mean, one France. Then you ain't coming in. You're going to be frustrated. I ain't frustrated. They remember Bar saying that one, they got beat me too. This fellow Marshall, who was in the Air Force with him. Marshall, I said, look, you still look so you see a flash in the air. Marshall said, after the war, that he was frustrated. Bar said, I was not frustrated. You know, that's how he said, oh, I was not frustrated. He said he was to assembly. I want to back in the bank and declare. I want to back in the, I used to be at a mock bar. Okay. is from 2009, 18th of May. It has private industry at the top. It says, George, this book was fascinating. I'm not sure if this was the source of your comments at the Salisis conference. If you haven't read it yet, enjoy it. If you have, pass it on to your most inspiring mind in the class. All the best. David. Okay? Right there, Thompson. Okay? Now, you said that to me because of this book. The book is called Black Swan. I did not know he was going to be a black swan. Okay? At the beginning of this book, this guy says that before the discovery of Australia, people in the old world were convinced that all swans were white. An unassailable belief as it seemed completely confirmed by empirical evidence. The sighting of the first black swan might have been an interesting surprise for a few ornithologists, and others extremely concerned with the coloring of birds. But that is not where the significance of the story lies. It illustrates a severe limitation to our learning from observation or experience and the fragility of our knowledge. One single observation can invalidate a general statement derived from millennia of confirmatory sightings of millions of white swans. All we need is one single blackbird. I push one step beyond this philosophical, logical question into an empirical reality, and one that has obsessed me since childhood. What we call here a black swan is an event with the following three attributes. First, it is an outlier, as it lies outside the realm of regular expectations. It lies outside the realm of regular expectations, because nothing in the past can convincingly point to its possibility. Second, it carries an extreme impact. Third, in spite of its outlier status, human nature makes us concoct explanation for its occurrence after the fact, making it explainable and predictable. Now this fellow, Nassim Nicholas Taleb, he's a statistician and all kind of thing, and they say that when this book went through Wall Street, it was like a grenade. What he's really saying is that a lot of things that happen in the world, we already have this linear way of thinking and so on, that it happens because of black swans. So here, the Democratic Labour Party in 2008 thought that they had it made. Young leader who had predicted for years that he would lead them to victory. And he had actually held back to say that he can't come in. Because he felt that if he ran a third time and lost, that it would be bad for his political career. I had asked him, he had invited me to his office, and he asked me about the leadership in the party. And I told him, well, David, you know, if you lost a third time, it can be bad politically. So who do you think could probably take over and ease you up from that third defeat? Bradford. And David said, George, you ain't no Bradford. So what he was telling me was that if he give leadership to Bradford, Bradford can get up. Bradford can get up. He ain't making that mistake. So he ate the Moscow. The Moscow came to the same conclusion. And that is when the decapitation of the party started, you see. what you have then is the black swan, because David Thompson goes and dies. How the hell David Thompson go and die? And David Thompson dies, and the whole DLP project is broken up because he was the voice of all carrier through. Black Swan, and I did not know that sitting down there in the Lisa's conference, he was right next to me, and we were talking about this book, and that he was going to be a black swan. He then sent another book. This is with the compliments of the Prime Minister of Barbados. It has done as promised, David Thompson. That is it. Okay. So it is fooled by randomness, the hidden role of chance in life and in the markets. These are two books that were sent to me by David Thompson. Okay? And they are on my bookshelf again, and my own. I could do so, but my army had pulled them down. And I have the things from him inside there. So that is, I have this. So this could be used in eventually, I suppose. Yeah. Or you have to come and keep it from me now, but yeah. And this is another one. You see? These will become very valuable. I'll get back at my bag.
Professor,
Yes.
what are you, who are you going to leave this library to when you leave?
Okay, well, you were asking already, right? I actually, when I was going, you see how I was walking, I had to have surgery on both of my knees. Because I was slightly bow-legged, the girls used to say it like that. They like bow-legged men, right? I was not bow-legged bad, I was bow-legged good. They could play football and they that, you know. So all the girls on campuses, they unite George Belle bow-legs. But then bow-legs, it put pressure on your knees. So as when I was coming towards retirement, I had problems with both of my knees. And then COVID came up. I had to, that's elective surgery. So they put that off. So I had to wait a whole year before you get the surgery. So then the surgeon told me, it's best to, the next thing you can go to, the left knee was worse than the right knee. Matter of fact, the left knee went like this. I was at the supermarket there at Black Rock, Carlton supermarket, one night. I was going in. And the whole of my left side just gave it. I can feel that in my left side. And I went down Brampton Road. And a taxi man came up and pulled me up. And I realized that then I had to go to my general practitioner, going in for school. And he told me, go to the surgeon. And it's a woman. As soon as she saw me, she said, that's a mechanical problem. And I am very cautious of surgery because I see the reason why you should cut it anything inside your body. Now you bar it. But I realized that I ain't going to be able to walk if I don't have the surgery, so I have any surgery. So then the COVID thing said, came in, postponed it, and she said, we're going to have surgery on both knees. The left knee is the main one, but the right knee as well. So when I went into the hospital, the surgeon, they had an operation on both knees. I remember when I got up, they had a nurse there, and they tell her that they use propaganda, right? The surgeons. Man, you're going to be walking in 2 days, man. You're walking 2 days. So I believe it. I walk in 2 days. So I get out of bed and I try to walk and then I start. They say if you go 45 degrees, you're going down. If you hit 45 degrees, you're going down, you're going up. Because it's easier to go down than to get up. When you go down there, you cannot get up. And they start right now. And the nurse said, Belle, don't fall. I said, are you falling? I can't stop. I went down. And I went down and I hit my left knee. And I had to go back into surgery next day again. Okay. I hope they do nothing to that nurse because it was not her fault. It was my bravado and ego that made me say, well, I get out of bed. I went down. She could not hold me. It's dead weight, you okay? Dead weight. You got dead weight. no female nurse now, when we started saying 3 male nurses to hold me. 3 male nurses to get me out of bed. So, well, yeah. No, so when you go out, we feel equal, and they equal on that, too. They can't hold up to them. Can't hold them on, and you're going down with that, but you're going down. Like going down. And they went down, round. So, yeah. So I just hope that nothing happened to that nurse. I did not hear about it. Got a bit of damn right now. Because she should have said, no way you come out with the event on that. So I hope that she didn't lose her job. Or I didn't think that funny show that way. But anyhow, so we got the last one, you got the decapitation. As I said, 3-fold. Barra, Thompson, Tate, and the decapitation goes on in the party. You can't do that to an organization and not suffer. So the Democratic Party has to recognize that they decapitated themselves significantly. Some part of it I will talk about the Black Swans, the Barra, and Dave Thompson, and then with the infighting. It looks like you're more settled. And I have been saying that in my public comments and so on, the question. What you have to control is everything. Now, there's this urgency. You got to think elections, you run elections. There's a psychological problem as you get towards the election. The body that lose they feel like way. If you know that, man, winning. At the beginning of the campaign, you lose it, you know. But then 3 days before the election, boy, man, they winning. Everybody. And then, of course, the truth hits home. You know? It was a psychological thing. So I think that is something that you have to be able to deal with in relation to. You should be telling people, we are recovering. We are rebuilding the party. The party is doing better. And it has done well. And then you can. I was going to keep this into the concluding, but I got hanging on very long. The orthodox position of the party would be St. Philip is the weak spot. So there have been a couple of seats in St. Philip. St. Michael Northwest is, yes, that is vulnerable. St. Lucie. So there's 4 seats. You can build back a parliamentary presence. But when you're going to say, I'm going to win the election and then you lose, you say, right, they're losing all the time, man. Losing all the time. Right? They ain't going to do it. So sometimes it is extremely difficult to control that urge to say, we win it. And we got to win. And the party is designed to win. That's why it's an omnibus party. It's designed to win. It ran for all these seats and they ran for 4. Even if they can get 4, running for all 30 seats. So there's a hard psychological bridge to get over. Now, Sarah James, you all want me to do because they are. I could go on. Okay. Sarah James in the liberal democratic system. He's a dialectician. He said there's a phenomenon. My student, they know most of my student college. So I was just first year, they went to law. First year. See, you all come in, I've asked me that questions like that. I used to when they come in and ask me, Oregon. I can tell like the musician with I, you know. But almost all of the people that are making noise in Barbados now, in politics, I thought. Peter Wickham, Kerry Simmons, Chris Sickler, you get on the list. I get all of them in my class. And some of them all were in the same class together at the same time. Dennis Joseph, very good theoretical, great. This is the C.R. James and the 21st century Caribbean, he wrote it down, C.R. James, the whole stuff about me here. Now he's saying, and there's a strange feel. It's from Perspectives and Proposals by James. You know James is a political genius. In an underdeveloped country, if a political party organizes itself properly and has a real program devoted to the mass of the people and the improvement of their situation, it will become a one-party state. But the opposition can take place, but there is no real room in most underdeveloped countries for any opposition to a party which is a genuinely mass party. And that is the situation. That is the cutthroat. And that is the situation that is the cutthroat business that is taking place in underdeveloped countries between two parties, because no party puts forward a genuine mass democratic program. So they have the opposition and all this business. There's no need for the opposition party and the government party. He's saying that without an authoritarian intent. He's saying that in a mechanical way, that if the party is being an efficient and effective party, in the room for the opposition to all the seats. And Barry used to say that. Barry used to say, you can vote for all these seats because of what you're doing. You not vote for the buyers. If you are an effective mass democratic party in an undeveloped country, you should be going for development. And if you're going for development, who else is supposed to vote for it? So you win all the seats. There's only when the other party is failing that you start to get the room for the other thing to come through. That is one of the explanations for why they were with survey. But I can't push that. Because if the Democratic Party goes through sufferation, with decapitation, with weakening itself, and the other party is broadening itself all the time, getting bigger and better all the time, you end up getting my seat. You know one party state? But it does not have to be an authoritarian one party state because it's a liberal democracy. So when they start doing what they're doing in America now, beating up senators and all kinds of things, do last night, it's a horrible thing on TV. Okay? Then you're in trouble. You're in trouble. So you don't want that. If the Democratic Party becomes an effective mass Democratic Party, it will win all the seats. My advice, just give the advice. Just give the advice. Well, there are three, that leads into three conclusions. Okay, the orthodox one is the one I said where you look for the erosion of popularity. There's a certain characteristic in liberal democratic politics, the first past the post and so on, where the regime, on the basis of erosion, it loses support over the years. And you gradually, and that's what happened on the basis of orthodox position of saying, St. Philip will go first, then probably St. Michael Northwest, maybe St. Lucie. You get 4 seats, and then the parliamentary base from there. You're going to have a parliamentary presence like what you did in terms of the palace school, I call it palace school. And you start to build out your presence. But that's an orthodox position. If we are living in a period that James again identifies as he talks about when you reach the highest point in a something, and this is Hegelian logic, when you reach the highest point in a something, you see how Hegel talks, is like how he said, you are a movement of your being, you are a movement from a nothing to a nothing. You are a movement from nothing to nothing. And in the movement from nothing to nothing, you have being. And that's why we are a total contradiction of who we are. Because we are like a flower. You are a movement from nothing to nothing. But the nothing is actually the real thing. That's eternal. Now when you reach the high point of a something, that is the moment that you start to perish. You see the paradox? Right? The moment that you reach the high point of the something is when you perish. So if the liberal democratic system is working at its best, with the two-party system and all that, and one of the organizations is being very effective, let's be abolish the next one. But you can struggle against that because of the dialectic. You can struggle against the dialectic if you are conscious of it. To reverse that, and you become the other, the something. Because in other words, then you would not perish. You will replace the other thing. Okay. So that I'm not as complicated in a way, but right. But it is that is dialectical Hegelian logic. There was one other thing that I felt was important to say to the Democratic Party, because, and this this is very good, you'll be a bit applicable for me. As I said at the beginning, Ben Barr did that thing with the secondary schools and then eventually with the university. The secondary school is a big relief to my father. Actually, because of the performance of his children. And Denzel Williams was Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal of the Mono campus. In the 13th Marcus Garvey lecture in 2024, he was carrying forward the thesis of Hilary Beckles, Beckles had said her, that we needed this graduate in every household. He meant that in the sense of that, going to increase the presence of graduates. And Denzel Williams said that Barbados is one of the countries that has the best profile for that in the Caribbean. Barbados and Trinidad. Let's use the characteristic 4 and 10 going to university. Now I also know that in my 40 years almost at the university, some of the strongest students come from Trinidad, Guyana, okay, the St. Lucia. I can't remember if he has, St. Lucia has one of the ones with 4 to 10. But Jamaica has 2 to 10. And he says that a place like Singapore, which we make the comparison with a whole lot, has 8 out of 10. And developed countries in Europe, 8 out of 10. And you cannot deal with that by saying you can transfer the resources 8 out of 10 by strengthening the primary and the secondary, because the primary and the secondary only prepare people to go to the university. And this country, in terms of developmental progression and projection, needs to go to the university. And it needs to go to the university at portions of 8 to 10 to deal with the complexities and developments of sophistication of the 21st century. If you don't do that, you're not going to make it. I was Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences when the Democratic Party's policy came through to abolish the tuition. There were 5,000 students in the Faculty of Social Sciences, so I mean, that was the biggest number of students ever. Okay? And it's because of what Hilary Beckles was doing there. When I left Jamaica in 1980, Carl Stone, Professor Carl Stone, the best physiologist in the Caribbean, meaning the best man in Michigan and so on. He taught me political sociology. He taught me, he was my supervisor for my master's degree. He told me, George, you're going to Barbados, you're going to Cable, you're going to intellectual intellectual desert. As we told his Carson, he said the only thing at Careful that is not a desert is the law faculty. Other than that, you create an intellectual desert. I saw Careful get transformed from that intellectual desert to what it is today, where it's competitive with more than answer, because they cannot say that with Careful. And it was because, and again, you all will be comfortable with this, it was because of Hillary Beckles, and because Hillary Beckles had going on to behind him. If he didn't have going on to behind him, he couldn't do what he did, but he did it because going on was behind him saying, go on and do it. Careful transformed itself from an intellectual desert to what it is today. Now this is what Hillary Beckles said as he became Vice Chancellor in his tribute to collegiality. He said, Team Careful was the most remarkable operational outfit ever created in the management history of the UWI. I cannot mention all colleagues who gave their maximum output of commitment, and for this I ask their forgiveness. But I must single out a few leaders especially. We pursued a campus built upon the foundations, expectations, and needs of the services economy model. That is modern Barbados and Eastern Caribbean. This meant that the Faculty of Social Sciences was our primary focus. Banking, finance, project management, international trade, offshore financing, economics, social policy, public sector governance, and entrepreneurship took center stage in phase 1. Dean Dr. George Belle led the charge and transformed his faculty into a dynamic force for national and regional development. New programs at undergraduate and postgraduate levels flourished. The curriculum overhaul of the campus was revolutionary. Skillful and determined, he guided the faculty through some very testing moments. We owe him a great deal. That's what Hillary wrote in this thing, okay? Well, my role as Dean at the Faculty of Social Sciences. I used to sit down inside of my office and the young fellows used to come inside there and tell me that they can't pay the amenities fees. They're struggling to pay the amenities fees. You know, as Dean, you got power. You can do certain things, okay? And they used to help with some of them. There were women, single mothers, who used to come on campus. And I knew that their situation was such that if they had to pay tuition fees, they'd go home. They cannot come on campus. Errol Barr is the body that said they have to have a tertiary education. That's why I'm looking at what Desmond Williams is saying. You cannot get that out of a social democratic program in an undeveloped country like Barbados and not suffer for doing it. I sat down in the Board of Studies in my last Board of Studies is Germany, the Board of Studies in the Faculty of Social Sciences, and I said, I looked at my AA, my administrators, I said, I want this minute that if this policy comes in, it's going to pull Careful right now. And a whole lot of people going home. And we had some, I can use an uncomfortable term, we had some fifth columnists in the faculty. A lot of them were not Barbadians. But I had a couple of Barbadians that were in there too, saying, the students got paid. Don't you rest? The months use that term now too. They got the big salt. Don't you rest, man. That's a right-wing oligarch comment because he living good. The developmental thrust, the evolutionary thrust of the party as a mass or as an omnibus party as a social democratic party. You know, there's a problem. I know the debate's still going on and people still saying these things and all that. I get cussed and all kinds of things. We got cussed twice. I got cussed for the poll that I did not do. The 2008 poll that I said that I was the, and therefore when Boxhill from Warner came to Careful, he said, Dr. Belle, can I do the poll for the 2008 election? The only way he could do that poll under the Faculty of Social Sciences if I gave him permission. That's the power that the dean got. If I said, no, he can't do it. If I say yes, the university is not a democracy. University is not a democracy. I used to tell them when I had board studies, I kick in council. And kick in council, when I got council in at the university level, the chancellor is king in council. The vice chancellor is the executive, you know. But for the day of the council meeting, the chancellor is king in council. I remember that when the best in Rebecca was first, because he was 10 years before he became vice chancellor, he was up for vice chancellor, he had won the poll. And they did. They say who should be vice chancellor. But because they say that Rex Nelford should get some more time. And we weren't against Rex Nelford. But we thought he was going to step down. You went and begged P.J. Patterson to stay on. So the fellas had said that before. Sonny Ramphal was big up in it. Sonny Ramphal was in there in the council meeting. Mia Mockley was Minister of Education. And Mia said, when she realized that they were going to give it to Hillary, she said, well, Hillary, will we rate somebody? And the Jamaican Minister of Education said, no, but it's something that's just not right. And there was another guy that was in Management Studies, on the council for years, and he said, we have to guard against tyranny of the majority. And that was like a death sentence. After that, we know Hillary getting the post. They're going to block it. And I said, well, my last little thing that I could do here is the Minister of Education over there, call it for Hillary. I am sitting on council. The worst I could do is say, let me vote. And Sonny Ramphal looked at me. And he said, it is the opinion of council that so is against me that Hillary is not in there. You tell me no vote, you don't vote in it. It's like a prime minister again in cabinet. You don't vote. The prime minister said, it is the opinion of cabinet. And that is it. He said, it is the opinion of council. And I was shut upon them. That's the thing. The 10 years there that they give to the review post. Okay. You have it 10 years before you become vice chancellor. So the positions in universities run like that. It's not that you don't take into account the opinion of other people, but it is not a democracy. And for intellectual purposes, that has some merit, okay? Because you could be the one man that got it right, and all the rest got it wrong. It's, as a matter of fact, even the party principle of the liberal democracy that we talk about here, the liberal system, the party of liberty, when teaching John Stuart Mill, as I used to teach my students, you can give this illustration, like Tom, a nerd, you got the power on one side of your head. You must allow that man who has the power on the right side of his head, even though all of the others got the power on the left side of the head. You have to allow that man with the power on the right side of the head to have the power on the right side of the head, because you don't know if next year everybody powered the hair on the right side. So you do not say I ban in right side parking. You do not say that. You say everybody, you all power your hair on the right hand side, you one man. Okay, power your hair on the right hand side. 12 months pass, man, I look in somebody, my part of my hair on the right hand side too. Okay? And that is the principle behind that, the liberty thing. As I say, the other thing now, the majority was gone and submerged the minority. And that's why Lenin had the war against Stalin and said, you can be capricious. Okay. We live in the information age, I can try to prepare the end because I might keep me eye on it real long. say the Orthodox, they are dealing with the thing where we say Philip maneuver, go for the point of Belle. In the Hegelian logic, there's this comment as well on error, and this is something that people don't understand. And that's why when I discussed again for the 2008 poll, all it did was give permission. Operational fellows in 2008 poll were two bright researchers on campus. The Honorable British, who is now head of the Capital School of Business, and Dwayne Devonish, who is one of the youngest professors at the University of West Indies. They were doing most of the research for the wrestling thing. But they wanted to kill George Bell, and a lot of these young right there wanted to kill him. Okay? For saying that going after was going to win. And all I was doing was interpreting that I didn't do the poll. I didn't do the poll. I am saying that later, but the point is that I could say it because the thing was so marginal and it was evidence later on by what's happened up to now. It was marginal. It didn't look marginal, they win a whole lot of seats. But science advances on the basis of error. The age of just. When you see the problem come up, this is Hegel. Error, when superseded, is still a necessary dynamic element of truth. For truth can only be where it makes itself its own result. See what you might thought? Because you are read out 10 times, most people. You read it once, you understand already. But most people are read it 10 times. Error, when superseded, is still a necessary dynamic element of truth. For truth can only be where it makes itself its own result. In other words, you actually got to see the negativity right in front of you. And that is what eventually brings up the truth. To say, that's we can overturn. And that's the big psychological struggle that you have. So you've got to face your error. A part that want to reform itself has to face it. They have to face the error. And say, well, that is the error, this is how the truth coming out. The truth must make itself its own result. That is, that's not even easy for a human being. Not easy for a human being to do that. But it's the logic of nature. It is the logic of nature. That's how we have developed as a species and so on. The truth can only be where it makes itself its own result. I dealt with the thing about the disillusionment with liberal democracy already, with the American dream and vote for the nigger and so on. Yeah. And I dealt with the last one too. The highest level of a something can reach is when it begins expression. The only thing I would left to do with that is if I actually let you again hear the words of Hegel. And Hegel and the rest is okay, but it's the logic I deal with whether you're racist or I'm damn racist. Okay? But hey, remember that the thing I read first from the Manfight philosophy, it shows you that he is not the source of the dialectic. The source of the dialectic is in Egypt. And the Egyptians were black and looked just like her. He got Egyptian blood in him. You know what? Another person that like that, Christina Hines. You ever see her head? Yeah. I think a little bit of it too. Okay, but not quite. But these are the kind of right that pull some. You see, some of us went across the Sahara into the West Coast, and when they get kidnapped, you bring some of those features. The Nilotic, it's the Nilotic look. Okay, the Nilotic look. He says the higher maturity of stage which any something can reach is that in which it begins to perish. Remember that we dealt with that point. Yeah. The higher maturity or stage which any something can reach is that in which it begins to perish. And that is where I will perish.
Well,